My name is Mark de Kuiper. I'm the 11th generation of the Kuiper Royal Distillers. I'm 30 years old and I live in Amsterdam. The Kuiper was founded in 1695. We started making barrels, and in 1752 we started to produce Geneva gin. And these days we only mainly focus on liqueurs, the range of colors and flavors for the cocktail industry.
I would say the next generation are those family members who will take on the responsibility of managing the wealth of the family or managing a business in the future or even in the near future. If you think about passing on a business or passing on wealth, there are a couple of things that are the same. It doesn't matter because in both cases a company or wealth brings responsibility with it. The biggest difference between passing on wealth and passing on a business is that the responsibilities are different. With a business, it's much more people involved. Passing on wealth, there's money, there are assets involved. So managing wealth and passing on wealth is, yes, preparing for ownership, preparing for the responsibility, but you often deal much more with specialists. And passing on a business means you own the business, but also you have to manage it.
The main goal is to pass on to the next generation, so to my children and the 12th generation. Well, it's absolutely not said that I'm the successor of the company, even though I'm the oldest, and my father was the oldest, and in previous generation it was the oldest who took over the company. It's a more open process. We have very strict criteria to meet in order to be able to work for the company, or at least in the management board.
A question that families often ask me is, when do we need to start to educate the next generation? And my answer to that is, start educating them in a playful way when they are in high school.
I think the right time to discuss succession is really in the early days, so as young as possible. Start to involve your children, start to talk about the business, let them be a part of the business, and let them in a small manner give some thoughts to think about.
Expose them to the company, let them start their own small business plan. Just to give you an example of what some families do, is they give young children, they give them a small amount of money. And the children, they can decide how they want to use it. It's really a simple thing, but it teaches them how to deal with money. And it doesn't matter if it goes wrong or if the first time they buy a new iPhone and they don't care about whatever. But in some cases they also decide, let's do something on philanthropy.
10% of the gained wealth annually goes to charity. And my aunt is the one that is always choosing the charities or the projects. And we're even now thinking of setting up a family foundation where the next generation can do their own projects and use the money we have in the foundation to undertake their own projects, charity projects. And in that sense we can work together as a generation, as a family on those projects.
If the next generation is coming along, what I usually start with is to really sit down with them and see what really is their vision. What's their aspiration? What do they find important? What would they like to do? I also challenge them to not only look ahead the next 5 years, but to really say, look a generation ahead. What's like in your generation you would like to do? And just to give you a short example of a family, they said, we have learned that every generation has to make a big strategic change. And that's what we're aiming for. And that's the starting point. And there it really doesn't matter if it's a company that's involved or that's wealth that's involved. Often it's easier to talk about the company because it's more tangible. You can see it, there's a building there, there's a history, there are products, there are clients. And with wealth it's much more difficult.
In our family, we are not used to talk about the business. At the dinner table, we did not discuss issues about the business.
Openness is of course important, but I would say what even is more important is fairness. And what fairness means is that family members involved, the next generation involved, have the feeling that they are treated fairly. And treated fairly means that if they have questions, that they can get answers. When they finished their higher education, they start working. And my advice is work in different companies or in different organizations. To see different types of organizations, to learn to work together with colleagues, to learn to be an employee, and to get ideas from different sectors. It's not only about having an MBA. It's also about educating them, to build up their own networks. It's also about educating them in developing the right skills.
When I started to study and I got more and more involved in the Association of Family Businesses in the Netherlands, I started to learn about the processes and the issues with family businesses and the succession and transition processes.
It becomes important also, especially if it's a family of wealth, is to learn how to work with advisors, to learn the basics, the terminology, the language of managing wealth, managing assets. Learning to become a responsible owner. What does it mean to be an owner of a company?
If growth is a thing that is in the strategy, that fits the strategy, then it's fine. But if it's not, then the long-term strategy is more important than my own personal dreams.